So the introduction can be shorter than this, and I think you have done what they've asked you to do. I don't think you need to say here. What I would say is the brief I chose was to make a short film showing the conflict between two characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You're saving words if you do that. Yeah. Okay. So that does both of those. Say very briefly what it's about. It's about a boy who's trying to become a professional footballer, but it's revealed that he has a muscle disease. That's very briefly saying what it's about. And again, I'm aiming to create empathy with my main character and explore themes of friendship and conflict. That's that. Okay, so actually your introduction does the job. Now, here is where you are, you're in need of completely different stuff, okay? Here you have to list at least 80 minutes of the films that we have watched in this next section, yeah? And what you can do is you can use headings in here, okay? You could put this, I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying in order to show, you've got about 600 words and you need to talk about the films that we've watched and the ones that you've been inspired by. Now, you've done this down here and here, yeah? So you've talked about Stutterer. You also have to talk about Curfew. You've talked about a Girl. You also need to mention at least 80 minutes of short films, okay?
So what does that mean?
So that means, let me show you an example of it. What's going on? Is it beefy? No, there's like 100 kids. Loads and loads of So you also at the same time. What's Martin doing? Guys! Take him down, Martin.
They shut the gate.
But it's like it's rush hour. That is mad. I've never seen that many people trying to get out at the same time. Okay. Oh, we recorded all that.
Okay.
All right. So this is the longer version of this. So here's an example. In preparation for this task, I watched a variety of shorts, including The Grandmother. Okay, it's got to be laid out in this way: italics, brackets with the name of the director, the country, and the date. Got to do that.
Yeah, I've done that for like other sections where I mentioned.
You've got to do it. Okay, for all of the films you mentioned the first time. Both of which were useful in highlighting different visual aesthetics. However, it was the social realist aesthetic and narrative themes of Della which inspired me the most. Okay, when you talk about these, it has to add up to 80 minutes. Okay, and you've got the list. I think on Show My Homework. Let me just see if I put them on Show My Homework.
So, how many short films are there's 80 minutes then?
You don't have to write about them in any detail, and you may well just say, I watched this film. I decided not to use black and white. Let me just see, where did I put it? Yeah, so I put this on Show My Homework, okay? And if you look at the amount of time here,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so what you're going to say is, I watched Elephant, and I liked the realist flat lighting of it. I also watched The Wrong Trousers. So the longer films that we watched, okay, you're gonna need to if you need to probably, what have you got? You've got Curfew.
19.
That's 19.
Gunfighter.
Yeah, but which ones have you mentioned?
Oh, Stutterer.
Stutterer is only about 10 minutes long.
Okay.
I don't know why I haven't got the length of time on there. So you've got about 30 minutes. You need another 50. So you've got About a Girl, that's another 9. So you need another 40. You're going to need to mention a couple of other of these films. A Girl's Own Story. You can talk about La Jetée, which we watched when you weren't in. We had a look at that yesterday, which you could just have a look at that, which is a black and white science fiction film which uses still images, and you could say, I decided not to go this way. I wanted to make a much more naturalistic film. Remember Meshes in the Afternoon that we watched, which is the one with the flower and yeah. You could say I didn't want to make a surrealist film. Although we watched Meshes in the Afternoon, I enjoyed it. I did not want to make a
So is that it? Just one sentence about it? So Meshes in the Afternoon is about this. I don't want to use this.
Yeah, just to get the number count up. Or even if you don't want to do that, you could say, I watched a number of films, including blah, 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 blah. The 3 that I was most interested in were blah, 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 and then just use the stuff you've got.
Okay.
Yeah? The key thing that they were saying in this is make sure they've mentioned 80 minutes of film. So even if you just say the names of them, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay? Just make sure.
And where do I put like this whole
section?
Mentioning? Yeah, this whole
Yeah,
section.
so that goes in the second section where you're talking about films. Let me just show you an example. Wait a minute, I've got one of these. This will just keep recording. If you wanted to sing yourself a little message.
Okay. What? Hello, Wasim of the future. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you get this coursework done because you need to. And also grind, revision, film studies, media studies, history. Yeah.
Okay, so they actually gave us some examples. So this is what we just talked about, the introduction. And then here's what the second part looks like. Short films I've studied for my production are blah, 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 blah. While they're all very different films, they share some structure and character. I decided to focus on 3 of them. And then you've done 3. That's the way it would work.
So it's not like your close study products. It's not. Oh, wait. So you know how I mentioned Stutterer and
Curfew.
So
Yeah.
I basically need to add more. To that.
You need to add here a list of the films that it needs to come in this order, okay? So here you need a list of films that are 80 minutes of films, and you could just list those 3 that we just talked about, ignore them, and then move on and just cut and paste the stuff that you've said about Stutterer and Curfew and About a Girl in there. And that would be your 600-word section on the films that we've been asked to watch. Okay?
I'm confused.
The one thing, so list, write about 2 or 3 that have influenced your project. You've done that. Just cut and paste that in there. you must talk about narrative. Yeah? And link specific examples to ideas in your own film. You have done that. Okay? So that's not that much work. It's really just filling in that and making sure, just read through it and make sure that you've talked about narrative. So how the narrative
Of the film.
yeah, of one or other of the ones that you're looking at closely. You've talked about mise en scène, yeah,
And what?
and you've talked about with Stutterer, you've talked about the urban background, okay. This, where you're talking about the character, this is more to do with narrative, yeah.
Right. So what narrative for what do you just talk about?
Yeah, and you've done here. You just need to say. So what you're saying is the narrative of these films, of one of these films, or of a film, influenced what my film turned out to be. So, for example, you could say that having this central character who has a secret or discovers something that works with both of these. You know, he lives. Your character has a kind of hidden secret that comes out. This guy's secret he keeps through the film. She has the secret with the baby. Yeah, and that's a narrative point, not a thing about lighting or cinematography and things like that. So as long as somewhere you make a narrative point, that's what they want you to do. Okay. So at some point refer to narrative. Right. Now here, you're going to need to expand out what you've said about other films. So you've said this, RS Road to Ninja, which I don't know, but I remember you talking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
This whole section needs to refer to other films, and it needs to be around about 600 words. So that's, you're going to have to lose
A
lot of this stuff.
Okay.
A lot of your description of your film in order to complete a piece on cinematic influences, how other films have influenced your piece.
Okay. I'm just thinking, what can I leave them?
Well, let's go down. So let's. So the last part, which you've got too much on, yeah. I think you've done really well. Do you want? Should we have a look now and see what we can cut out?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So let's say we've got 600 words. We'll just play around with that in a sec. Okay. Well, we'll do that. I'll stop recording now. And then the last thing you have to do in your conclusion, you have to go back to your aim. I'm aiming to create empathy with my main character, for example. And you have to briefly say, I think I achieved my aim in the film that I made because, or one of the ways that my aim was realized was, yeah. Basically, again, it's a checklist. They just want you to make sure that you have hit the marks that the examiner has given. Right, we'll have a